Hello again, and welcome to Overcoming Addiction. And here I try to share some of the things that I use, or some of the tools that I use to overcome addiction. And this episode is a continuation of what is the third part in a series of episodes. And in the first episode, I talked about a guy who fell into a hole and how you know, and in the second episode, I gave more in depth of the what the whole represented and how people that are in the whole, which the whole represent addiction, and how people that are in that hole are looked down upon, just as you walk past a hole and whatever that's down in the hole, you have to look down and see it. Well, that's how people view those who are struggling with addiction. And like I said in the first video, I talked about a story about a man who fell into the hole and the events that occurred while he occupied the hole, and later the event that led to him being freed from the hole. Now, a lot of this story has a lot to do with my own personal experience as a substance abuser, and I'm reading this from a chapter from an upcoming book about my struggles with addiction and how I overcame it. But in this chapter of the story, as I say, the story about a guy who fell into a hole, I'm going to talk about what happened when he was finally freed from the hole or that predicament, because a hole here can represent, well, I'm using it here to represent substance abuse, in particular opioid abuse. But it could represent any kind of abuse, affliction, or anything. So the guy that was in the hole did eventually get out. Now, as I said in the last chapter, where I went into more depth of the story, the hole is symbolic to the demon of addiction. And though the title refers to someone falling into addiction, in most cases, it was a choice to descend into the trappings of substance abuse. Now, I want to clear up something that I, I said in the last video also about this subject, about this topic of people falling in that really addicts don't fall in, they jump in. But I want to clear up something because there are those who are drawn into abuse, and that's due to being prescribed medication containing opioids to treat an injury. Now, they may not have chosen to take the path or jump into the hole of abuse, but uh, because they're being prescribed these medications, I'm pretty sure a physician who prescribed these warned them of the dangers or the trappings of using or abusing opioids. With that being said, those who were prescribed medication, opioid medications, even though they were uh, lured into abuse by the circumstances, they did make a choice to continue the opioid use. And a lot of that continuous use was with the aid of the pharmaceutical companies, but that's a story for another time. So what did happen to the guy in the story after he got out of the hole? Well, getting out of the hole is pretty much symbolic of just getting away from or around getting away from those or around those who are substance abusers. Because as I said in the last video, the guy discovered that he wasn't alone down in that hole, that there were others down in that hole with him, and they pretty much were stuck along with him and were not making any efforts to get out, but he wanted to get out. So getting out of the hole is the first step to getting away from the abuse and those who are abusing. But there's still a process that goes along with getting out of the hole. And from my own experience, overcome opioid abuse is a process. Getting out of the hole was just the first of many steps. Like I said, there's the step of getting away from the abusers or the abuse or the circumstances that go along with the abuse. And then there is the step of being out of the hole and continuing the process of getting away from the abuse or being treated for the abuse. And that's what we're going to talk about in a minute. Uh, One thing for sure, that demon that had you while you were in your abuse is still there and is making every effort to keep you under its influence. And this is where the next battle starts. So it's one thing, like I said, to get out of the hole, to get away from it. And that's the physical part. The mental part is getting out of it and staying out. After getting the physical body free from the abuse or substance use or whatever it is, the task of freeing the mind comes next. And for many, this is the toughest struggle. It was for me. There are many who have and likely will relapse due to their inability to deal with this struggle. The the enemy will play tricks on the mind and will try to use things that really aren't there. For example, even though you have been away from substance abuse and you pretty much are the symptoms of the withdrawals are starting to ease up, the enemy or the demon will try to convince you that it's okay to go back and do it now because you're a little better. And it's deception. The next path after you get out of that hole, after you make that first step, because getting out of the hole is just the first step. The next step should lead you to a treatment program. And getting to a treatment program may not eliminate the possibility that a person will relapse, but it will greatly decrease the chances of one. It's possible that people that have gone to treatment centers have relapsed while they were there. But the chances are that they weren't there to get cleaned in the first place. So the relapse had nothing to do with the way they were treated for the substance abuse. For me personally, the inpatient program worked best because first, it removed me from situations that might tempt me. And second, it made it easier for me to put some distance between the period of abuse. Now, what that means is being away, getting out of the hole. Like I said, is the first step. That's getting out of the abuse. You want to put some distance between the period you were using and the period you are, and the period you're working on to um, battle the addiction. Okay, because the further you get away from that predicament, the stronger you become. And the stronger you become, you are able to fight the mental battle better, because the mental battle will be the toughest and the longest one. And once you get to that point, like I say, the further you get away from your abuse, you're going to begin to desire a better way of living, or a better lifestyle. And it's going to be a lifestyle that you never imagined while you were in that hole. Now, make no mistake, the demon is fully aware of your desires. He knows you desire to shift and change your lifestyle, and he doesn't want you to have control over your life, especially since this demon has been in control of your life for decades. In my case, it was decades. I was controlled by the demonic influence, and just when I decided to stop, it was like getting a divorce out of a marriage that you have been in for, like I said, decades, and you finally decide you want a divorce, but the other person doesn't want a divorce, and that other person is that demonic spirit. And because that demonic spirit doesn't want a divorce, it's going to do everything it can to try to hold on to you, to keep you there, and to tempt you to stay, to influence you to stay. So, how do you combat that? Well, for me, it was through prayer and faith in our Creator. Now, getting into a treatment program is still part of the process of crawling out of the hole, or being removed from the hole. The treatment center is offers you tools to help you take each step that's needed to get out of the hole and further and further and further away from the addiction. This is what I use the treatment center for. I went in there and discovered and looked for all of the resources I could, and I used them as tools. And I took their tools and shaped them to my life. So I created other tools. Um, there's a book that I written, and it's called The Effective Use of Spiritual Tools. And this book is pretty much describes how I use the tools I developed in treatment center and afterwards to continue to fight this battle against substance abuse, because, as I said, the demon never goes away. It's always there and will always be there. And one of the tools that I had to use, the primary tool that I had to use while I was in treatment, was prayer. Because during my time there were moments when Satan tried to detour me. He tried to tricked me and caused me to leave sooner than I should have left. There was an incident where one of the patients that were there overnight would be very disruptive and would play loud music, and it would not allow me to sleep, and which caused me to be unable to pay attention in classes the next day. And I took the problem to the counselors, and the two counselors I took it to practically said they would do something, but actually nothing was done. So I thought I would have to take it upon myself to do something. So I decided that I wasn't going to be able to get the treatment that I needed, because during the classes where I was supposed to be gathering these tools, I could not function because I didn't have sleep the night before. So I figured I was not going to get it. So I decided that day, well, one day I decided that I was leaving. I slept in my hat and coat because I was determined. I had all my clothes packed up, and I was determined that I was just going to get up, call my daughter, come get me the next morning. I'm leaving. Well, I couldn't sleep because the music, as I said, was continuously overnight and it was loud. That morning, one of the counselors who I did not get a chance to take the problem to came down the hall, heard the music, went in the room where the music was coming from, took the instrument that was making the music, or in this case, I think it was a radio or something, confiscated it, and told the guy who was playing it overnight he was not getting it back until he was done with the program. This, the night before, I had prayed and asked God, what should I do? Because Satan was trying to detour me. He was trying to put roadblock in my recovery. And this is why I said prayer was a primary tool, because I had prayed that night. The next morning, God removed that roadblock or that detour Satan had tried to put up. He removed it instantly. So the primary tool going in, during, and now for me is prayer. Um, Recovery is a continuous process. And as with life in general, there will be some challenges. The challenges of life are part of life that at times we have no control over. But the challenge of overcoming substance abuse is one battle that once it's fought and won, it will present new opportunities, opportunities that you weren't aware of before. You know, as I said before many times, with most substance abuse, well, pretty much with all substance abusers, our main priority is to find a way to use. This is a daily process. Once you remove that priority or out of your life daily, other things begin to occur in your life, begin to appear in your life. So make the next task one of choosing the best opportunity for you and seize the opportunity when it occurs. This will help you to start to believe in yourself again. And as I wrap up this video, I'm going to say what I always say. Once you develop faith, don't lose hope. Don't get discouraged. Always have faith in your faith. Um, you can, like I said, pick up this book, Effective Use of Spiritual Tools. And if you go to follow me on Facebook. That's Sandy Mays. That's my name. I'll have more details on when and where the book will be available. So until the next time, everyone, I want to remind you again, continue to have faith in your faith.